Hello and welcome. His effort to bring peace between the Israelis and Palestinians won him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1994, along with Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat. And he continues to push for a solution even when divisions grow between both sides. Farming on a kibbutz, he says, was his only ambition as a young man, but he went on to be Prime Minister, Finance Minister, Foreign Minister and Defense Minister of his country. This week on One on One, meet leading Israeli politician and peace advocate Shimon Peres. Life for Shimon Peres began in 1923 in a part of Poland that is now Belarus. He led a relatively simple life, influenced heavily by his rabbi grandfather, who was responsible for much of his education, making him far more religious than his parents. In 1934, the Peres family moved to Palestine, where he lived on a kibbutz for several years. It was in 1947 that he joined the predecessor to the Israeli Defense Forces, being given responsibility by Ben-Gurion for personnel and arms. At the age of 29, Shimon Peres became the youngest ever head of the Ministry of Defense in 1953. His election to the Knesset in 1959 continued a political career that spanned more than 6 decades, with him becoming president of his country in June 2007. Mr. Peres, it's great to have a chance to chat with you.
Thank you.
You've got obviously a very extensive and well-known and documented political career. What do you find yourself now, as a sort of veteran politician, what do you find yourself focusing on the most?
Future. I lost total interest on the past. I think today memory is an excess luggage. Why should you remember? Take the internet, charge it with the memory. We have to use our brains and faculties for imagination, for discoveries, and let the past be handed over to the equipment.
Still, it must be disheartening to have taken, one step forward. You did so much, and then end up taking 3 steps back, and then trying to take another step forward, and then finding yourself going backwards and forwards.
There's no other way. The Jews on the way to the Promised Land, crossed the desert, took 40 years. Each of us has to cross a desert if you want to reach a Promised Land. It's not a promenade, it's not a pleasure, but if you want to move ahead, you have to negotiate with the hurdles, the oppositions, the setbacks, the disappointments, and don't be disappointed. It's normal.
Now, it's great to see you're so positive, and you remain so positive in the face of so much. And I wonder, you've been in the Knesset since 1959. You were there at a very early age. And I wonder, what do you feel has grown to be your strength? What is it about you think, that has allowed you to sustain for so long?
The sense that I serve my people. I think every person is as great as the cause he serves, and is as small when he serves himself. That I discovered at an early age. So I'm not so much concerned about myself, I'm very much concerned about my contribution. And then basically I really love people.
So in your lifetime, what sort of progress do you expect to see? Is it the kind of big leap you would hope to have made?
I expect 2 things. One is to conclude the peace process. The missing part is the peace with the Palestinians and the Syrians, and then I would like to see the whole of the Middle East entering a new age. I don't think it's a struggle among cultures. I think it's a misunderstanding among generations. There's this generation which is very much afraid of the new epoch, of modernity. They think it may kill their traditions, so they want to get rid of everything which is modern, everybody modern. It's a mistake. They cannot, even the most fanatic people, live on the past. We can live only on the future. It was said already that the Stone Age is over, not because there are no more stones. The age is over. And contrary to many other people and my own friends, they feel the world is chaotic, Iraq and Iran and Chechnya and God knows what and terror. I think the world is pregnant with a new age. And what we see is the pain of birth giving. And I do believe we are entering in an entirely new world, and whatever we have today is irrelevant to the progress. Governments and states and divisions and definitions, all is on the table of change and is changing.
Well, let's take a trip through memory lane, the history that you've seen, and describe for me your childhood, because you grew up in, you had a very interesting one, growing up in what was a sort of, well, you described as a no man's land in Belarus, which is now a part of Poland. But you said you used to dream of Israel as a young boy.
Yes. I was physically born in Belarus, but otherwise I was born in Israel for my very first day of life. The language we spoke at home was Hebrew, Russian, and Yiddish. The small place I used to live was made only of Jewish people, disconnected from the rest of the world, and the dreams and the literature and the papers were all coming from Israel. So while living abroad, actually, I felt like living in Israel. And Israel for me was like a paradise. I mean, a flawless, lovely land with blue skies and strong people cultivating their land, having a new society. I wouldn't permit myself to introduce in my dreams a single question. It was so perfect and 100%.
Your mother was a librarian. She took, encouraged your reading.
From her I inherited the love for books. My father was extremely dynamic and active. He couldn't rest for a while. And for that reason, I believe I was growing up as a restless man too, all the time trying to act. Surely they had, but they never intervened with my way of life and my preferences and my thoughts. So I grew up totally independent.
Now, your mother, you were saying, encouraged you to read, and you actually, by the age of nine or so, you had read Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky's. Yes. At that age, what did it do for you?
I couldn't sleep at night. I was very sensitive. And all the time I was judging the behavior of all the actors, all the heroes, all the situation. And Dostoevsky, as you know, wasn't an easy customer. He was the first introduction of pessimism in my blood system. And then I went over to see others who are more optimistic and more balanced and even more heroic.
What about your father, Yitzhak, who, what qualities did you get from him? He was quite a survivor. His story was fascinating too.
Yes, he joined in the British Army during the Second World War. He was taken in prison in Greece. He ran away and was hiding in a monastery. And they provided him with food and shelter. He fell in love with the Greek people until they discovered him. And then the Germans took him again in prison with another group of 9 persons. He was the only Jewish one. And they escaped again and they took a boat. But a German plane attacked the boat with machine guns and all of the soldiers was killed. There was a priest among them. And the priest told my father, look, you are the only Jewish man, they will kill you. So changed the identity with the killed soldier. They changed the identity and they were taken to prison, again to Germany. There again he escaped with a British friend who got the Iron Cross, the highest British decoration. They provided food to the refugees, the Jewish refugees in a concentration camp. And again, he was caught. And they issued a death sentence. And then when my father was facing the firing squad, the priest, who was an Australian person, jumped in between them and my father and says, if you'll kill him, you will be judged as criminals after the war. You don't have a right to do it. It's against international law. And they stopped. And that saved him.
Now, as a young boy, you were very religious too.
Yes.
How did that change over time?
It changed when I came to Israel. You know, the person that has the greatest impact upon me was my grandfather, who was a rabbi. I think he liked me very much, and he was teaching me from an early age the Talmud and the Bible, and I was very much taken by him. He was really the man that influenced my childhood. When we left for Israel, he came to the railroad station, usually wouldn't come. By the way, the same railroad station where later on the people were sent to Auschwitz. So you had the railroad station that at the earliest age it went to Israel, later on to Auschwitz. And when we departed, he said, "My boy, remain Jewish." That was the only sentence he has had. And I kept it in mind for the rest of my life. But when I came to Israel, all of a sudden, everything was so different. And people went free with different dress. And I adapted myself to the very secular community very fast.
Mr. Peres, don't go away. We're going to take a very short break here. We're back with more one-on-one with Shimon Peres in just a moment.